do I regret Kazuha? Now, this is kind of a weird question, because this character is not used on basically any team that I ever use anymore. However, this guy still is like a top 5 support in the game. Just because he's not used on almost any of my teams nowadays doesn't mean I have to regret him, and that is the answer. I don't, because this guy is still genuinely 40% res shred, 40% damage bonus. That is an insane combo that has aged incredibly well because they were scared to move past it. They can't even put more on Xilonen. You have to give Xilonen her weapon, which then give Kazuha his weapon, and I'm not going to get into it. I don't have Kazuha's weapon, but this, in theory, would be given like normal attack damage bonus and stuff. It took 4 years before they felt comfortable making a second version of this guy. And even still, she's not even like a definitive, like personally, I'll say definitive best, but like you can have arguments between the two. It isn't like a, oh, no, nah, you're not the best, or you're not, better than Kazuha. You are better than Kazuha. There is not like a definitive. It is case dependent, to a certain extent. If you really need that AoE control, crowd control, then Kazuha could end up being better on your team. It also depends, like, do you have more characters with 20-second durations? Like Fiorina, you could put her on the 4th slot, and then Xilonen can go in, like, the last slot or something, right? And Kazuha, it's a whole thing. But basically, Kazuha is just still really good while he's not used anymore on my account. I just don't see a reason to, even be somewhat down on this guy. There's not. There just isn't. It's not like I haven't used this guy in forever. I have used him. I used him on a Nevi team. I've used him on my Arlecchino team. There are still, I still use him, but I only use him when he's, the 4th option or something, right? But not the 4th, but, let me show you a couple of the teams that I use him on, right? So, let's say I'm running Mavuika or something as, Eon San Bennett, combination. We get rid of Xilonen on the team, and then we go ahead and we run, the Nevi team, this Nevi team. Instead of, this basically would be the whole entire Nevi team, because I'm running Mavuika, right? Or I could be running, so let's go ahead, Fiorina, Xilonen, Mavuika, and Nevi, right? And, that's my team. The character that I put in the second half or the first half, whichever one I'm doing, is a team that looks like this, but, you run Kazuha here, and, he's able to, go ahead and we'll just go ahead and grab this and this and this, and this works for Kazuha. This works. It does. You're able to swirl pyro and stuff. It really works. And it's really strong for Arlecchino. It's the team that she used to use before, Xilonen came out, and then, obviously, Silali. It's a team that I've had to use a couple times since Natlan's release because, we don't necessarily have all the characters in the world to just use whenever, right? So Kazuha still finds his way onto a couple of my teams, but, that is basically where the line ends. This is where it ends because there is no other character that I use Kazuha for anymore. Because Xilonen is just the superior option to me, because crowd control, realistically, I don't value highly at all because most characters nowadays can do the crowd control themselves by just having a good enough AoE, right? It's not like Risley, even a character who would benefit from that crowd control, Risley, doesn't want him and would way, way, way prefer the longer duration. But, it's still, Kazuha, he's still good. He is. There is not really a way to argue against him being good. You just can't. What do you have to say to make this guy is worse or bad at this point? There's not. It's not like a DPS either, right? Let's say we're talking about Raiden, right? Oh, Raiden, she's the 4th best Electro DPS, or maybe 3rd, right? Let's just say Versa, Chloride, Raiden, right? That's the tier list. She's the 3rd best. She's the 3rd. So her entire team is getting cannibalized since all 3 of those characters use Overload, right? Kazuha doesn't have that problem because Kazuha is the support character. This guy is able to go back onto other people's teams. He's able to be the 3rd best support in the game and still be utterly insane, right? It really, there's not a way around it. He is just that guy. He is. And, there's not really much else I have to say. He's just that guy. I don't know what to say. Like, I genuinely, like, this video's 5 minutes, you know? People like when I ramble on, but, like, what do you want me to ramble on about? There's not really much. I mean, I guess I can talk about his weapon choices. Xiphos Moonlight has been a very good weapon for me. It gives everyone basically 10% energy recharge, which is really nice, especially on, like, a Nevi team, right? So let's go ahead and look at my Nevi real quick. So, like, my Nevi here, he has, you know, 111% energy recharge. With Kazuha on his team, he has 120%. And that makes him a fair bit more consistent. There's no way around it. It just does make him a fair bit more consistent. So, yeah, Nevi does do very well when compared with Kazuha and Xiphos Moonlight. Now, if I had, you know, Kazuha's signature, I may, you know, end up having, let me go ahead and see. I think it's 20% attack and then 16 damage for normal and charge and plunging attacks, I believe. Yep, I was correct. 20% attack and 16% normal charge and plunging attack damage. So, I mean, that's good for Arlecchino. That's good. You know, it is very good for Arlecchino. So let's look at Arlecchino real quick. If you're running a Bennett on her team, that's probably going to bring you up to like 3,400 attack or something. You're going to get an extra 200 attack on this because you have 200, you know, from the... because you have 20% extra attack from, you know, the base attack here. So that's 200 extra attack. So that brings you up to like 3,600. And I guess that's like a 6% overall like attack increase, which should equate to a 6% damage increase. And then that's not accounting for the damage bonus, which, you know, honestly, on this team, we don't really have that much damage bonus, if we're being entirely honest. Like, there isn't much. You have Xilonen here and Kazuha, but Xilonen, you know, you have to build up for that, and that's already going to be when Arlecchino is lowered down. So the damage bonus being only 16% isn't actually that bad. And, you know, it also does increase his own personal damage bonus, because if you look at the highest amount of elemental mastery you can get on something like this, as Xiphos Moonlight, you have 165 elemental mastery. His signature weapon is 198, which would honestly push my, you know, Kazuha up to 1,000 elemental mastery, giving him 40% damage bonus properly, rather than, you know, 978. Oh, it might be, you know, 40% damage bonus, you know, rounded up, whatever. So yeah, I haven't used the guy in basically forever. I feel like I have him C2. Honestly, this has never been. If you're like considering, oh, maybe I should get Kazuha C2, don't. It's not worth it. It genuinely isn't. Like, this guy, maybe his C1 helps him out with his energy a lot. I don't know, but in terms of his C2, this thing never comes in handy. I'm looking at him on an Arlecchino team. I'm not going to use his burst, because what his burst is going to do is swirl pyro and screw over all of the, you know, vapes and stuff, right? So that really hurts Kazuha not being able to, you know, swirl properly, you know, when it's burst, and then that can be a huge issue for him in terms of getting his C2's value out there. So yeah, I really do feel like Kazuha, he hasn't like aged bad. He's still the Kazuha that we know and love. It's just now we have Xilonen, who I consider the better version of him, right? Like, you know, it's just outright is the better version. You can, you know, think about that however you want. Personally, I think the longer duration is far, far, far superior than whatever Kazuha can provide, you know, but that's my personal taste. You know, you might have a different personal taste, but still, if you have a different personal taste, then you really wouldn't regret Kazuha, because Kazuha is literally, like, at that point, you're making him considered for the best DP or best support in the game. Right now, my tier list would probably go Xilonen, Fiorina, maybe Bennett, then Kazuha, or it could be Kazuha, then Bennett. It's a little finicky, because Bennett is just a tough character to judge, because he's only attack, and his support gets completely nullified when it comes to a character like Nevi. But basically every single character in the game is attack scaler almost. It's weird. I probably would put Bennett as the third support, just because he is like one of two mega attack buffers, honestly. So yeah, I think I've tried to ramble on long enough so you guys can have some background noise, but yeah, I don't really have anything else to talk about. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.